welcome back to the Mina Show featuring Lenny, the only NFL podcast. One of the hosts thinks Gesicki is what happens when you eat garbage. That's Lenny. I'm Mina Kimes. And I am so happy to be joined today ahead of week 6 of the NFL season by my friend, apparently a Red Sox fan. He's wearing a Red Sox hat. I didn't know that. Even though he is not anywhere near Boston. Ollie Connolly, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back. I do believe last time I was here, the next day I was immediately rushed to hospital. And I think it's because my take on Drake May, I believe I took him at 11th overall in the 3-year quarterback draft. The football gods realized that was even too low.
Is it too early for a victory lap? Where are we at with the... We're going to talk about the Pats. I think you might have that game. We're going to do every game this week. Do I have the Pats or do you have the Pats?
I believe
so you might want to save it so you can wax poetic when the opportunity arises. Yeah, you have that game. Ooh, against my dear Spencer Rattler. Okay. Yeah, he's been awesome. He was one of my winners of the week with Dominique. What a game. Were you just floating watching him on Sunday night?
I was levitating. I think it was like 6 a.m. here. I came straight from taping NFL Daily with Greg Rosenthal. Both of our brains were complete mush in London. And then I was just in, a state of pure euphoria watching him carve up the bill.
Before we get started, you guys, Ollie publishes an excellent newsletter, The Read Optional. Check it out on Substack. And also you're podcasting in a bunch of different places. Can you tell folks before we get going?
Yeah, I podcast everywhere essentially at this point, but they can listen to the Read Optional podcast. That's the one with me and John Ledyard. It's about 9 hours a week of the dorkiest, nerdiest football talk there is anywhere outside of the Mina Kimes Show.
You guys do a great job. Listeners and viewers of the show also know John, of course. All right, let's get into it. So we're going to do every game this week as we have been doing. Some of them we will be discussing in more detail than others. Very backloaded again, the Sunday night, the Monday night games. It keeps happening, but there's some good ones before then. And Eagles-Giants, Thursday Night Football. There's intrigue here. Now, obviously, I just gave this to myself. I didn't feel like we had to both take a side of this. So, I think coming off of obviously a down performance for the Giants offense, fumbled, turned the ball over on 5 straight possessions. We were asked on NFL Live, what happened in the losses? And I was like, I don't need like more than 10 seconds to say what happened here. So we can talk about that. But for me, the key in this one, I think we have discussed this Eagles offense at length. I think every podcaster on earth has been trying to figure out what's going on with the Eagles. Ostensibly, this is a get-right opportunity for the passing attack, which typically feasts on single-high man coverage. The Giants play the 4th most single-high in the NFL. Ollie, one would think they would change up their tendencies. There's not. I don't think it's accurate to say there's like a blueprint for playing the Eagles per se. But there's kind of a blueprint for playing the Eagles. Like if you're doing, if you're not zone blitzing, if you're not running a bunch of sim pressures, you're really not trying. And in fact, it's kind of a fireable offense at this point. Don't you agree?
I agree with that. I think that Shane Bowen in general has committed several fireable offenses throughout the season. So this is a very strange matchup in which the path for both teams feels pretty clear on how they should operate, particularly when it's Eagles offense versus Giants defense. And yeah, I have so little trust in the two staffs that they will actually follow through on what is needed.
The Giants are 32nd in DVOA versus number 1 wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb put up 112 on him. Quentin Johnston, you might remember, put up nearly 100 yards on them. So again, this feels like an A.J. Brown get-right game. Well, you alluded to the other side, though, there being a plan for New York and Jackson Dart. I mean, what do you because yeah, it is kind of funny, right? Like we talk about, like, is there a blueprint to play the Eagles fans? I'm not saying it'll work. I'm just saying strategically there are things you should be doing. And on the flip side, strategically there are things you should be doing. Fine, Keely Ringo is a good starting point. Not saying that teams are capable of that, but like, what do you think New York should be trying to do in this game?
On offense, I think the way to get after the Eagles right now is try to kick them as best as possible out of their base style of defense, which is the 2 linebackers on the field. If you can make them get heavy, They don't really have the interior depth. And I think you can push them around slightly. And if you get super spread and wide and you put more smaller bodies on the field, they obviously don't have the guys in coverage outside the 2 superstars where you can then start just trying to pick the weak fish and attack them over and over again. So if you can get them out of the look where Zach Bourne is the move piece, you can kind of attack in either direction you want on the ground or through the air. So that really is the path forward. And with Dart being such a threat in kind of the vertical downhill quarterback run game, I think it's easier to make the math for you as Brian Daboll.
You mentioned Bond being the move piece. It feels to me right now, I still think the Eagles defense is very good. I think they have enough superstars around the field. Obviously, the corners, but they have good safeties. They have really good linebackers, obviously. But it does feel like from a pressure standpoint, that's the only way they're kind of getting consistent pressure right now is when they have like Bond on the line of scrimmage. Jalen Carter is clearly hurt. Or either he's hurt or he's just worse than last year. And so the whole idea was the Eagles had but their two biggest pressure getters walk out the door. Okay, cool, but we have potential defensive player of the year candidate in Jalen Carter who can take over football games. We literally just saw that down the stretch. But if he's not 100%, that sort of idea falls apart a little bit, and it feels like Vic is having to turn to other ways to find pressure.
Yeah, he's blitzing more than he would ever normally want to. Still below like the league average. He's like kept his sanity, I think, just so when he goes into meetings, he like feels okay with himself and doesn't have to go see a therapist or something afterwards. But that kind of is now the go-to how they try and get pressure. I've been pretty disappointed in Jalix Hunt. I really thought there was going to be a huge breakout there. I thought that personnel moves kind of told you they thought there was a huge breakout coming, and it's just not really happened so far. He's really juiced up off the ball. Any kind of contact on him and the rush just stops. And there's not even like this second surge, keep driving, keep fighting. There might be some internal pressure. You can kind of play cleanup on the backside and start high-fiving everyone. So I've been pretty disappointed with the edge group. And I think this game is, does anyone have an edge defender who can just take over, who can just kind of end drives single-handedly? Will this be a Jalix Hunt breakout game on a short week against a bad offensive line? Or will the Giants guys who are clearly more talented just kind of end drives before they get going for Philly?
Yeah, the Eagles' offensive line has been, I think, fine in pass protection. Run blocking is kind of where you're seeing, and we could have a whole conversation about the fact that they're still trying to run out of condensed formations and they don't have the blockers. And should the Eagles trade for a blocking tight end? Should we? I was talking to Dan about this last night because we were watching the Broncos on tape, where we had a segment on NFL Live, and I was watching that dude Nate Atkins, who they use so much, and I'm like thinking, there's such a, right now across the NFL, like a lot of the good teams just have these like thankless blocking tight end, like John Bates in Washington. I was watching some of the stuff they're doing in the run game, and the Eagles don't. And weirdly, I think that could help unlock the run game a little more. Is that a crazy idea?
No, I agree with you. The most efficient explosive play in football last year, so explosive play were when the big dude on the field, was Alec Anderson in the sixth lineman set for the. That was how the easy way to get an explosive in the NFL was with Alec Anderson on the field. They've now traded that for Jackson Hawes. There is just such like a signifying trigger tell that the big guys are on the field. We must have to fit against the run. All of a sudden, it's play action flying over your head. So I agree with you. And this game is where it really frustrates me with the Eagles. I'm like pre-frustrating myself that they're going to remain condensed and hammering away with the run game because the Giants are so based out of dime. They're going to have a bunch of light dudes on the field, and they're going to think, well, we'll just get big. We'll slam the ball down their faces. And they're just such a team when it's spread to run and they kick guys out of the box by design. And it's one clean lane for Saquon and he can take off, and you just buy into the fact it's going to be explosive, but maybe not efficient. And so I have pre-frustrated myself for this one.
There's going to be more six offensive line conversation, I think, it's a lot of these teams are really leaning into that. But I imagine we're both picking the Eagles despite these frustrations. Like I said, I think that this will be like more people will be like, oh, the passing attack looks good again, even if maybe that has to do with competition in my mind. You as well, Eagles, I assume.
Yeah, I'm taking the Eagles.
Okay, I gave you Cardinals. Colts. Cardinals coming off of a crushing, devastating loss. The Colts looking like the best team in the NFL. What is your key for this one?
The key for this one, I think, is scheming up pressure on first down. Is there any way the Colts, who can be as funky as anyone in the league when they want to be defensively, they've been pretty, I would say, basic and static on early downs this season. Then they kind of get to have their fun on later downs, which has been an inversion from what they did last year when they had no talent. And it was like, let's just throw out the craziest stuff we can to kind of bluff our way through games. Can you find a way to try and set back the Colts offense? Can you get Daniel Jones, who has been absolute nails all season, but there are still 3 throws a game where he's just putting it up. And maybe you just think, can we get a tip ball? Can someone take that away for us? And then we get the two takeaway Daniel Jones game with solid field position. And then we just kind of limit the possessions to take the ball out of his hands. So if the Cardinals can find a way, whether it's just using Buda, Mac Wilson, whoever it is, to get some early pressure and scheme up a free open runner to kill first down, I think that's the best chance they have in this game.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a theme with Colts games this year, right? Which is, can you get them into third and long? Which, again, sounds obvious. It's true of most teams, but a team that is really crushing it on first and second down the way they are, the play action passing attack, when that's on the table, they're so good. It is kind of your best chance. And I was just looking at my computer because ahead of the Rams game, I mentioned that the Colts are like top 3 in like every offensive metric except third and long. They've actually gotten worse since then. They're 27th in conversion rate when you get them into third and long. So that's kind of everything. It's like, you're right, those early down pressures for Arizona. I mentioned this on the pod on Tuesday with Dominique, but the Cardinals offense statistically has been the best in the NFL through 3 quarters of every game. And then the fourth quarter, they completely fall apart every time. So that would be another thing, like just playing a complete game. And yeah, there's an opportunity. I'm going to pick the Colts, but I think there's an opportunity here with the Cardinals because there are just like even last week in the first half, Murray and Harrison Jr. looked incredible. It's like they're just utterly incapable as a franchise of playing a complete game right now. But what makes them so frustrating is there are full halves where everything looks good, and I just don't. It's hard for me to like diagnose the problem, but they just keep falling apart.
Yeah, it feels like that on both sides of the ball too. They've lost corners like mid-game. There's like 3 corners all of a sudden, and Bryce Young is driving down the field after throwing up on himself for 2 quarters essentially. So that plays into too. I think their inability to just effectively run the ball, which was such a key element last season. And then they just have no vertical presence in the passing game. They got no speed off the line of scrimmage. Everything is so slow. So the margin for error is so high that you just get these really broken drives where they'll just get a 3-series run of it's just 3 and out every time, or some kind of dumb mental lapse up front where Kyler gets spiked in the backfield and we get 3 drives are over. And the defense just doesn't have the talent to be able to lift you for like 3-4 drives in a row.
You like them running the ball 3 straight plays to close the game. I think It feels telling about Jonathan Gannon. It's like, we're paying Kyler Murray all this money. The one thing we know he can do is scramble around and make weird stuff happen. Would you not think the first of those 3 would be some kind of bootleg, get him to the perimeter, make some guy missing an angle, and if not, at least the ball, it's effectively a run play at that point, and then we'll just slam it straight ahead if we need to. It's weird that more of the run game isn't predicated on Kyler Murray as a running, especially like when I watch what they're it's so funny, right? Because it's Cliff, who's a very good run game designer, and you watch what they're doing in Washington, and they're so good at making second level defenders respect the threat of Daniels running, and they have so much misdirection. We'll get to that. And then you watch the Cardinals, and you're like, why you have a really fast quarterback too? Why is this not one of your? It kind of feels to me watching them like Drew Petzing still thinks he has a dominant run game with like. You know what I mean? That can push people around, and they just don't. And the whole offense is based on that false idea in some ways.
Yeah, their run game design is like a really sophisticated version of a 2002 offense. And they've got a quarterback who's like tailor-made to play in 2025 in terms of what you're mentioning there, kind of the spread option game, more of the pistol type stuff where you can be a little bit more even in the run-pass conflict on either side of the formation. They really telegraph where they're running the ball over and over again. They do cool stuff in the pin and pull world and who's moving, who's not moving. That stuff's good, but it really is still, we're just going to overwhelm the point of attack with talent and then throw a running back behind it.
Colts defense talked about, I think everybody's they're becoming, it's funny, like after talking about the Cardinals, we're like kind of like the defensive darling. Once again, Big Lou is back in the spotlight with all the freaky stuff on defense. I'm not going to get into it on this. I've talked a lot about the Colts. It is a big deal, though. I know this is what the point I got into this on live yesterday. Because the offense is clearly the better unit, but if you have a defense that can put together bespoke game plans to screw with the best quarterbacks. We've literally seen that be a Super Bowl formula for Lou Anarumo in the past. So I'd be very excited if I was a Colts fan.
I would be really fired up if I was a Colts fan. And Lou is one of those guys where you'll see some of the efficiency metrics and some of their under the hood figures aren't that strong. Their 4-man pressure rate is exactly where you would want it to be. They blow a lot of coverages because they're trying such wonky stuff. Guys just can't cover the distance in time from what he drew up, the crazy stuff on the whiteboard. So you're going to get some big chunk plays where guys mess up. And I do think at some point they'll get hit over the head for like 40 points in one game and people wonder if the unit's good enough. But you mentioned it, the one-off individual game plans are so strong, so different. That's the calling card that he will just devise. Yeah. Game plan. That's tricky for players to pick up when you don't have like foundational stuff and it changes every single week, but it gives them a major advantage. I think he is, outside of Spags, like the number one pick for a DC in a playoff game. You would take Lou because he would just weakness and attack it. It's just hard to outthink all these other excellent coaches every single week during the season unless you have a dominant 4-man rush, and it's coming along slightly, but it hasn't quite beaten there early in the season.
Yeah, I do wonder if they're potential trade for a pass rusher type team, but they're doing just fine right now. All right, I imagine we're both on the Colts here.
Yes.
Okay. I have Broncos Jets. I have to think this is the most lopsided game of the week. I have not looked at. We're talking about the Broncos a lot. We talked about them a lot on Tuesday. So we'll leave that for a second and focus on whether or not, I mean, I've kind of just given up on the Jets defense. I don't even, but the Jets offense actually puts together drives where they look competent, both running the ball but the issue is when Fields is under pressure, everything falls apart. I'm pretty sure he has the biggest delta in EPA per dropback when he's kept clean versus under pressure this season. He's 11th actually when he's kept clean. They've been actually okay moving the ball, but of course that is a problem because you're going up against a Broncos defense that not only has one of the best 4-man rushes in the NFL, but also doesn't just lean on that 4-man rush and plays their own brand of chaos ball a little bit. We're talking about Lou. I think Vance Joseph's been pretty creative as well, and I don't think that bodes well for the Jets offense in this one.
No, I think this could get ugly for them. That they are a really, really good first 2 drives of the game offense. Whatever they do in the week, everything is dialed in. Then the game unfolds, the game stay gets a little skew for them. Then they can't do anything. And then in garbage time, they put drives together again. And so I think their only hope in this game is to somewhat repeat that formula of having a really, really good 2-game drive, which then makes Bo Nix believe he's got to play like Josh Allen, which he's like want to do. He really thinks in his head he's Josh Allen. When he plays within himself, the team is more successful. When he puts the hero cape on, they struggle. That probably is like playing on Bo Nix's psychology by putting 10 points up early is truly the only way I could see them winning this thing.
Yeah, I'm on Denver as well. All right. You have Broncos fans, if you're listening to this, you want more Broncos talk, listen to the Tuesday pod. We did a lot on the Broncos then. And we're going to be talking about the Broncos a lot down the stretch. All right. Pats, Saints, take the floor.
Can we talk about Drake May? Can I just wax?
This is a good spot to talk about Drake May.
I mean, he is just roasting people. I can really not believe the amount of complexity and volume Josh McDaniels is putting on him every single week, and he's like meeting the moment. I really thought the season would be similar to last year, where there were the flashes of the unbelievable throws, maybe some operational issues, the boneheaded plays every few weeks, maybe 4 of them every week where you go, that's a boneheaded throw. Why did he decide that? Why did he run into that sack? And then over the course of the season, you would trim some of that fat and it would start to add some new stuff into the offense. It's a different offense every week. They have brand new packages every single week. It is pairing all the stuff when Josh had Cam Newton, the downhill quarterback run game, with all the greatest hits of the Brady era in the drop back passing game. And the fact they've been able to synthesize it all into one like cohesive formula, and that Drake making it absorb and take this stuff on every single week when he did not come into the league as being given like savant-like status on the white, figuring out the offense, that they can be so complex and shape-shift the offense week to week. I think is why they're, what are they now, 4th in efficiency in the passing game. I just don't see how the Saints will be able to keep up because they are the most formulaic defense in the league. And if we've got a quarterback and coach here who are steps ahead of everyone, even when they're playing more exotic defenses, I just don't see what the chances for the Saints defense.
Your point about the Patriots offense is really interesting to me because I think if you watch weeks 1 and 2 and then put them up against weeks 5, 4, and 5, it looks like a complete. They're formationally, the way they're running the ball, it looks really different. Do you feel like they've settled on the optimal scheme for the skill players they have in May's skill set, or do you think it's still a work in progress?
I think it's a work in progress. I think they'll stay week to week. They started deploying this two-back stuff, right, with 2 true running backs. They were kind of two-back centric to open, but with a tight end operating as a fullback, and they still love to get to that stuff. But now it's really a bit blurrier with more of the jet motion stuff and 2 true running backs on there, and you get the jet motion game where you might have the give, or that guy might become a blocker. So I think that stuff is kind of new. The real thing is moving just where Diggs is in the formation. I think as he got and they accepted how healthy he was and the chemistry him and Drake may have. Like, one of the most automatic things on third down now is a back shoulder throw made to Stephon Diggs. That's one of the most automatic plays we have in the league at the moment. So I just think him getting healthier, them quickly recognizing the chemistry, saying, let's play him inside more, has unlocked more of an efficient, like, easy button third down approach for them.
Yeah, I think it cannot be overstated the impact that Diggs breaking out has, Diggs looking like he did in the first half of last season, to be frank, has on this offense. I also really love the connection, which goes back to last season with Hunter Henry, and the way that they use him, especially out of their play action stuff. He's just he's like the perpetually like 11th, 10th best tight end in the league or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh yeah, Hunter Henry, he's good. No one ever thinks of him as being great, and like, you know what I mean. But like, he's just really reliable, and he wins downfield too. It's not just short stuff, and their two tight end stuff is interesting. I do think they're gonna win, in part because on the other side of the ball, like, I think I mentioned this. Actually, maybe I didn't get into it after their win. Rattler's been solid all year and is definitely not the reason why the Saints team, was losing games. And I think that was a really good contrast against Dart, because he looked so much more pro-ready in that game, candidly, right? And he was just playing like solid football. I mean, he got the one deep ball to Shaheed. I think the problem is this Pats defense is really also starting to shape into form, and they're really good against the run, and they've got the backs, the corners to hold up when they allocate more to stopping the run, as they did against Buffalo. So, I'm going Pats in this one, and I'm excited about the trajectory of the team. I imagine Pats for you as well.
Yeah, Pats for me as well. I think that the Saints would have to get to real movement in the run game inside. And the Patriots are just one of the best teams in the league. It runs between the tackles. They're just crushing everything inside. And if that's
Tonga,
absolutely.
I love him.
If it's third and long, that's when I think Rattler, who's played really composed, and there's been some really high level, but you just know in there is Rattler thinking, I could go and get myself into an MVP conversation if I ripped 5 heaters down the field against the Patriots. So if he's in third and long consistently, I just think he's going to cough the ball up too much.
Chargers Dolphins is a game that 2 years ago would have been a massive. It was. You remember the great Herbert Tua debates? Feels like a far cry from those halcyon days. I wrote for my key, which team can make the quarterback hold on to the football for longer than 2.5 seconds? That's kind of the ball game here. I was looking at FTM Fantasy has filters where you can filter out first read throws, which is great. And Tua is dead last in EPA per dropback when you force him past his first read. We know the story there. But Herbert is 30th, and the reason for that is very different for him. I mean, it's not that Miami has a good offensive line, but the quarterback is different. This has not been the case with him in the past. The problem is it's a jailbreak, right? Like every other play right now. So that's kind of the ball game for Miami. If they can get that pass rush going, if they can actually make him hold on to the football, if they don't get diced up by quick game. No Hampton in this game is also huge because the Chargers, in addition to running out of offensive linemen, are now running out of running backs. Every Chargers game is now like a battle of survival, I guess. I don't even know what to call it. It's really unpleasant, to be honest. I really hate it.
Yeah, it's tough to watch. And Jim Harbaugh must just be devastated because this is exactly the kind of game he wants. A defensive front who cannot play against the run. I will just run the ball 45 times down their throat. There's no one I feel more sorry for in the league right now. The Dolphins linebackers who snap to snap are all in the right positions and doing their jobs, and they are getting D linemen benched into their chests 5 yards off the ball every single snap. Every single snap. There's nothing those guys can do. But yeah, I think it comes down to, can the Dolphins get any kind of juice from the front? Those guys have just been so poor all season. They invested all the money in that. The back end is
regression.
Disaster. The only way to get around it is to have constant pressure up front, and those guys just haven't shown up all season.
So it looks like Hassan Haskins, who's gigantic, by the way. He was. I walked by him at Hampton. Even Hampton didn't look that big, and Hampton's a big back. But yeah, there's an opportunity for them to run the ball. I do think that. God, who am I going to take in this one? The other thing, man, the Chargers' defense looked so gassed against Washington. I was watching them thinking like this defense is tired of staying on the field, and they were just getting out leveraged in the run game. Dare I take Miami here? They just lost to Carolina.
An embarrassing.
Who are you taking?
I'm going to take Chargers. You mentioned the first read thing, and it's now even more perilous with Tua, because before, to take the first read away, teams would play top down because they were so scared of Tyreek. So it'd be these really exaggerated rotations to kind of cap Tyreek up top, then try and get down into the alley to take what Tua wanted to do away. Now it's always just a heavy front. One guy drops out and Tua panics. He's the least adjustable quarterback and adaptable quarterback in the league. And that is everything Jesse Minter wants to do. So I'm going to have a heavy front. Someone's going to bounce out. The first level will just be evaporated. And then there's going to be some depth on the back end. If the guy tries to move to the second and third read, that's just not Tua's game. So I just have a hard time seeing Miami really moving the ball to keep the defense on the field to get gassed.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to go with the Chargers here. But I don't know how I feel about this team is just really hard to. Yeah, it's just such a bummer. But I do think that defense can have a bounce back performance. All right. Speaking of bounce back performances, you talked about Bryce Young. Now the second straight week or was it the previous week where he was like really, really bad the first half and then good in the second? I think it's been 2 straight weeks, right?
It's been basically every game where at some point you ask yourself, are they going to bench him? And then all of a sudden he starts playing pretty well.
So he's going up against the Cowboys, which is a get right. Who has the get right opportunity? It's the Cowboys against the Panthers in Carolina. You can pick your key, and we can get. I don't know if it's not Bryce. We can get into it.
The key is, can anybody cobble together some kind of pass rush? Right? You talk about get games. This almost smells to me like the Cowboys might have some degree of effectiveness just by happenstance and the talent on the other side of the ball. Up front in the pass rush, and then we spend a week being like, hey, could this defense get to a level good enough because of how effective the offense is as they just torch the Panthers all over the place, that they could be a sneaky, frisky playoff team? And the following week we find out, well, that was just a one-off. It was the Panthers.
Yeah. The Dak Prescott MVP campaign could take another hit, another boost. Could get another boost this week. The thing about Carolina, it's interesting too. There's no pass rush. The pass defense is miserable. They've actually been better at stopping the run this year than last year. Was like one of the worst run defenses of all time. But and maybe some of that has to do. Maybe those. Now I have to dig into that. Some of those numbers might be inflated from the leads that they're giving up in the first half, and teams just kind of going conservative against them. But the Cowboys offense just looks like a wagon right now. I mean, like they're. I mean, I don't know when CD. I don't think he's back in this game. Is he?
I don't believe so. I mean, that offense has the best rhythm and flow of any offense in the league, of tying every single piece of it together. Run game, play action, RPO, drop back, deep shot. It is just such a symphony with Dak, and he has done a really good job of balancing between wanting to play Dak ball, where it's like I sit back there and I drain the play clock and I figure out the rotation and I know who to attack, and just like letting it rip. And it's no huddle, or it's like modulating the tempo. They're in and out of the huddle really fast. He is just in peak Dak levels right now of blending knowing when, hey, let's just get the play called and go. And then if I need to, it's third down. I will take my time, survey the defense, find the right answer, and get the ball out quickly.
Who has the worst pass defense?
Probably the Panthers, which is ludicrous because Eberflus.
Is it? Right. They're both bottom 4.
Panthers 4-man pass rush group has a 17% pressure rate. That's the
crazy.
lowest I've been able to find going back 15 years for a 5-game sample size. That to me is more impactful. Even playing your corners 12 yards off the ball with no pressure, which I just don't know why Eberflus continues to run out a defense like that. The Cowboys aren't quite that bad. If you can't impact the pocket against Dak Prescott, he's gonna
he's gonna dice him up. Yeah. I'm taking Dallas in this one, but the Dallas defense always makes me nervous about every game, I guess. But I assume you are too.
Yes, taking Dallas.
Real quick on Bryce Young before we move on, because I haven't talked about him very much this season, except for just saying that it's been an insane roller coaster. You've written a lot about him and schematically what you think they should do with him. To your eyes, what do you think has been the biggest issue this year?
He just doesn't see the field well at all. And then he gambles when he can't see it. And you just can't play that way in the league. And I just have got to the point where what is like the super strength? What is the thing that is really an A+ trait that he has? And I thought it was his toughness and his smarts. And the smarts is just not quite there. There's so many gamble throws of just hoping for the best, putting the ball in poor spots. And I did think Canales did him a slight disservice to open the season. We talked about this, I think, a year ago when they got into empty last season. That was actually the second most efficient explosive play in the league. It was Alec Anderson was number 1. Bryce Young in empty was number 2. That has just vanished to open the season. They really cranked it back up the last 2 weeks, but it's usually because they're behind the game and it's a pass obvious situation. So then they start going. Bryce plays a little better, but he's against beat up defenses or bad defenses. So the numbers get slightly inflated. And it's also just when it's in kind of a regular neutral game state, it's been nowhere near as effective this year as in the past. And I think it's just as simple as Dave Canales wants to play bully ball football with a power thrower. It would be Russell Wilson. It would be Baker Mayfield. It would be Sam Darnold. And that's just not who Bryce is. He's a point guard who needs to be an empty, 35% of the time. I don't know if any staff in the modern game is going to accept that as their quarterback.
Yeah, I also don't know if there's like a good, I'm thinking around the league, like who is a quarterback who's winning in the way that he would win. Obviously, Burrow plays like a sort of modified version of that, but
truly the only one I can think of is you'd have to have 2 really good tight ends and you'd have to look like the 2011 Patriots where it's really tempo based, empty, but it's matchup based because you got 2 dominant tight ends. That's like a heavy lift to ask an organization to just put on the field the 2011 Patriots offense and our quarterback will be good. That's not really how it works for the franchise guys.
Browns Steelers. I assume you're on Cowboys too.
Yeah.
Browns Steelers is me. So this is another one where I actually have the same key for both teams, which is who's going to tackle better. I really think this sounds so basic, but you have 2 quarterbacks who kind of stylistically want to do the same. I think both of these teams' offenses want to do the same thing now that Dylan Gabriel is under center for Cleveland. They want to run the football, and it was a really encouraging rushing performance. We talked about the 6 offensive linemen thing happening around the NFL last week. They really had a lot of success getting into those 6 offensive lineman looks and running the football in Minnesota. Cleveland has an excellent run defense, so I think that they're going to present more issues for the Steelers in that regard. But we know what Aaron Rodgers wants to do. He wants to quick game them to death, and that's not kind of what Cleveland wants to do with Gabriel. So, I think about like DK Metcalf cracking off that big explosive play. You were at the game, right? With Greg? I think I saw a photo of you guys.
It's not that one, the Dublin one. I wish I would have. The atmosphere looked unbelievable.
Oh, right. You were at the London one, of course, not that one. But anyways, thinking about DK Metcalf just like running, I feel like the Browns defense has been vulnerable to giving up yards after the catch. The corners have been weird, like kind of inconsistent this year, like Denzel Ward sneakily also has had his ups and downs. So I think just defensively on both sides, which of these defense can stop, 5-yard plays from turning into 8, 9, 10-yard plays is going to be the difference in this.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think they will come from probably those heavy personnel groupings. And Rodgers is just the master. It looks like it's a big presentation in the huddle. You throw all your big guys on the field, and I'm just going to move the pieces around to get any kind of leverage
Pew, pew, pew,
advantage
pew.
I wanted. You mentioned just like, okay, we're going to get big, but I'll move DK inside. And it's just, a 3-yard slam, but that could be 11, 12 yards for us based on how the Browns play. I do think that Schlesinger will help cover a lot of that up. They really do just say you stand in the middle of the field and rally and fly to the ball.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he's missed a tackle. He did get decleated by Carson Wentz in the Vikings game. Then the very next series, he came back and crushed Carson Wentz, and he had to go and get his shoulder checked out at halftime. So I think Schlesinger can cover an awful lot of that up. To me, this just feels like it's going to be a car crash at the line of scrimmage. Everyone in 12 personnel, 21 personnel. You mentioned sending an extra lineman in there, and the Steelers send the extra O lineman and Darnell Washington, which is effectively 2 extra O linemen.
7-0, yeah.
Yeah. So I just think it's going to be an absolute car crash. And is there which back can kind of create best after contact? I just don't know right now. If you were doing a power ranking of which running backs you trusted to churn out yards after contact, Quinton Judkins will be pretty high up the list.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the Browns' run game better in this one. I like the Browns' defense better in this one. But I think that the Steelers, they're obviously the quarterback to me I have more faith in him in terms of the point guarding. And then also the Steelers defense has played better the last 2 weeks, right? Now that we know Pat's offense is a juggernaut, the reality is they actually gave up a lot of yards to the Pats offense. They just kept turning it over. So I don't know if that's sustainable. And then Carson Wentz just, held onto the football and did Carson Wentz things. So I don't know if I'm entirely buying the improvement of the Steelers defense. Screw it. I'm going to take the Browns in this. I'm sure they're the underdogs. I'm sure they are. I'm going to take them. I think this Browns defense is going to give Rodgers a lot of problems.
I agree with you on that. I think the Steelers are just a really middling team, and the conference is just really bad, and they're going to win 10 games here with a negative point differential, but they got to lose some games at some point. So I'll go with you. I'll take the Browns too. I was really impressed with Dylan Gabriel in his debut. I just thought the calmness.
Yeah, I thought he looked good.
Rhythm, the efficiency, the mobility in the pocket. The Steelers, it just feels like every single play has to be perfect to get 8 yards. And then maybe, just maybe every once in a while, someone will miss a tackle. It will go for 40. And I just think the Browns can be a little bit more sustainable on offense, and they can get huge takeaways and turnovers on defense.
I'd like to see Kevin Stefanski put a little bit more faith in Gabriel, like at the end of the game, running 3 times in a row into stacked boxes. I understand Gabriel had, it feels like a play action pass would have, I was really shocked.
Bizarre. It was bizarre to me. Same thing with Kyler. If these guys can move, it's the most easy thing. You may as well run a bootleg to open up with. It's the same impact as running the ball, unless the guy puts the ball in the, you're probably only going to pick up 2 yards and keep the clock running anyway.
All right. One more game, and then we'll take a break. This is a good one. Seahawks, Jags. Weird one. I'm on the Jags because this is in Jacksonville. You're on Seattle. You go first. What is your key for this game?
My key is how often can the Jags make Sam Darnold make second reaction throws? Because he has been absolute money this season in a way I just would never have expected. And that they offensively, as you know better than anyone, it's not always been clicking. The run game isn't quite there. The seeds of something impressive are there, but it hasn't quite leveled up in the way you would expect. I think if you just think it's a turn the back chunk play action offense, there's some of that in there, but a lot of Donald's best throws are just gripping it and ripping it and often evading pressure. And I just don't know, is that going to be something that holds up for 18 weeks over the season? Or at some point, he is planting it between double coverage onto a guy's face mask 40 yards down the field. It is extraordinary to watch, but is that really going to hang up for 18 games in the season? If the Jags can really get into some of the sim pressure world they're doing, they're running an awful lot of creepers this season from 3 safety sets. You can really blur the middle of the field when you have those guys kind of bouncing in and out in that kind of vertical plane. And if you can take that away from Donald and force him to start working to the outside, that's when I think start getting some pressure home on him.
Yeah, what Sam Darnold is, not in my wildest dreams. I think what's the important thing too to note about him is he's playing significantly better than he did. I don't know if people appreciate because I think last year Minnesota was winning games, but the offense was actually quite uneven. And I know everyone just kind of blurs it all together. And we remember him at the end when the pass protection fell apart. And then before that, everyone's like, no, he was like the MVP. No, he wasn't. Sorry. Like, he wasn't as good as he has been early on in Seattle, pushing the ball downfield, obvious drop back situations, deadly accurate and aggressive, playing when he even making good throws under pressure, which has been in the past his issue. It's like him, Baker, and Daniel Jones all sold their soul to the devil at the same time. I do not like, what the hell is happening? It's crazy. It's like that. But we'll get to Baker. But yeah, he's been unreal. And I think you're right about the Jags. The Jags defense to me is a little fool's goldy. Like, there's definitely still issues there. And you saw that in the cornerbacks, I think.
Yeah, the Chiefs having kind of their best offensive performance for 2 seasons, but then falling short and it being like a 99-yard.
Don't turn it over.
A 99-yard pick, which was a really outstanding play from Campanelli. And like I said earlier, it's really hard when you're a scheme-based turnover team. Like, it's not because you've got studs. It's because we're fooling people over and over again. It's just hard to fool these guys every single week for 17 straight games.
Sorry, it's been a non sequitur. I Googled CeeDee Lamb's availability because I wanted to see when he's going to be back. And the first thing that came up was an article about statewide sheep producers at their annual convention. Eat lamb, wear wool. Okay, Jag side. So this is an interesting one. This is a little bit of styles make fights because the Jags offense so far this season has been very good running the football, 4th in EPA per play, and just okay passing. They've been very inconsistent, 23rd. So 23rd running, or probably 4th running, 23rd passing. The Seahawks defense has been 4th against the run and 23rd against the pass. I enjoyed that perfect symmetry. That's all. I just want to bring that up. But it also is very important in this game because the Jags just lost Brenton Strange for a few games. He has been a big part of that rushing attack in my estimation. And they're coming off a game where they weren't able to run the ball the way they like to. Kansas City kind of sold out against it a decent amount. So Trevor Lawrence had to actually, beat them to the air downfield and made some clutch plays. And I think he's kind of going to have to do it again against Seattle. Little apprehensive talking about this defense because they were so injured. A big part of the reason those numbers are so bad is the injuries that they've had in the secondary. And I'm pulling up the injury report as we speak because it's so the last week against Tampa, and it's like this kind of got lost in some of the conversation around the game. The entire Seahawks secondary was injured. Not saying that the Bucs offense wasn't awesome, but it was really, really rough last week. And so I think you're going to have to keep a close eye on the availability of Witherspoon and Love. And yeah, because somebody is going to be, they're not going to be at full health. And that strikes me as the best way to attack this team.
Yeah, I agree with you. You kind of pushed past, I think, Brenton Strange being out there. It is shocking how much of their offense is designed around Brenton Strange.
Yeah.
It's like, going away. He has Brian Thomas Jr. They drafted Travis Hunter. They traded a first-round pick to go get him. He's like, but my bubble screen package is built around the second-year tight end at Penn State. It's like, really, bro? That's like what you want it to be. But it's been effective. Particularly, you mentioned his impact in the run game. I think the run game is a little bit peculiar because they do really creative stuff in how they draw up the run game and how it moves on and flows into the play action stuff. But Lawrence isn't the best turn the back play action thrower. So they haven't really taken advantage of that. And if you go and dig through some of the granular figures, their running backs only hit the design gap on gap scheme runs 51% of the time. That's one of the lowest rates on record ever. Yet they churn out yardage on those runs. The backs make things happen and they don't hit the gap it's designed to go to. So it's a little bit like, it feels like the line's doing that. And I think Robert Hainsey is one of my hot takes of the season. Robert Hainsey has been the best center in football.
He's been so good. I actually think the whole offensive line, I'm kind of shocked by how good they look on some of the gap. Every time I watch these gap highlights, I'm like a different Jack, like Anton Harrison half the time is making like an amazing black downfield. Sorry, but Hainsey's been really good. Yeah. He has
really
leaped off the tape.
We are in the middle of a center crisis as a league, but Hainsey is like saving us. And yeah, they get into 12 and they mash people. The thing they just haven't got, the reason why sometimes I think the offense feels stilted, and it's not just that Lawrence is a high variance player anyway, is that just the how the coach wants to attack teams. I just don't think of the skills of Lawrence naturally. He wants to see the field, be in the spread it around. He's a huge first read guy, a predefined read guy, pre-snap. Whereas Cohen wants to be this really creative run game. You start biting on the different moving pieces in the backfield, and all of a sudden the ball's going over your head to Thomas Jr., De'Ami Brown, or Travis Hunter. So there's still this like push-pull tension, I think, between how they want to play. And if the Seahawks are healthy, and it's not even to me just the talent the Seahawks secondary, it's like they can't get to the full menu of all the rotation and creativity just throwing dudes out there. You just have to sit back and say, we're playing man coverage, and can any of those guys cover Brian Thomas Jr. one-on-one if everyone's hurt? I don't think they can.
Hainsey, by the way, hurt last week, hamstring, checking, looks like he didn't practice yesterday, so that's something to it's also a big deal because I think the Seahawks' best pass rushers are on the interior, so that matters. Jack's offensive line, sneaky, like, surprise of the season for me. I thought they would be bad, and they've been far from it. I mean, the Chiefs' pass rush is no great shakes, and that's a whole separate conversation, but week after week, I'm watching them thinking like, wow. And it's some of it's the same players. Little and Harrison have both been like pretty damn good. And I'm taking the Seahawks in this one, though. I just feel like coming off of the high of the Chiefs win and the Jags, I like them. And I think they have a decent chance. They're definitely in the playoff contention, but some of the stuff's a little fluky. A lot of turnovers on defense.
I agree with you. I think the thing that isn't fluky, the offensive line is mauling people. Whether that can or not, I'm not sure. They don't allow any free runners through. So they're about to face the team who wants to do some of the creative sim stuff. They're not quite as sim-based with McDonald as McDonald was when he was in Baltimore. He's kind of built a new defense in Seattle because the front is so good. He doesn't need to do all the fun and games when you just got great players up front. But when they do get to that stuff, which is really how they try and generate the takeaways, is, okay, now we're going with the disguise hit to try and take the ball away. The Jags just don't fall for that stuff. Hainsey has been so good at figuring out who's coming, who's not, and getting everyone right. If he does miss the game, that it's like as big an injury as if like Brian Thomas Jr. or someone was on the injury report. He really makes everything roll up front.
Seahawks, Jags?
It's
a tough one. This is a really close one.
I like the idea of, I certainly don't trust Trevor Lawrence to have like an all-time great moment for him and then kind of like be able to keep his pulse steady. I'll go with the Seahawks on that one. I imagine he'll be feeling himself going into this one.
It's just coming from Jacksonville. I love the vibes there right now, and I want to pick the Jags a lot. It's a little bit of a letdown there. All right, let's take a quick break, come back, and get to some pretty good games on the back end. All right, Rams, Ravens. You know what? So, okay, look. Lamar Jackson seems like he might not play in this game, which makes it ultimately, completely fundamentally uninteresting to me. Sorry, Ravens fans. But just, what are we, I do want to quickly hit something here with the Ravens with you, which is they did a kind of fascinating trade. The Harbros got on the phone. I want to know how that went down, by the way. I mean, Ortiz is the Chargers GM's from Baltimore, so obviously there's familiarity there. But, like, that's just very... And it's a really funny trade. Okay, sorry. So for those who missed it, the Ravens, let me get the details of this right, traded Odafe Owe for Olohi Gilman. I think there might have been a pick involved, but...
Round pick thrown in, yeah.
Okay, so Owe, and this is notable because... I think this is a huge reason why they did this trade, is playing on his 5th-year option. And the Ravens obviously don't want to pay him, right? So that's part of this, right? No doubt, you're trading the guy who's on the 5th-year option. You don't want to pay him. You're trying to get something in return. You get a good football player. And Olohi Gilman is a really good football player, which is what makes this... They're both kind of like not stars, but just good players, is how I would characterize both of them. From the Ravens' point of view... you look at this and you're like, but you guys aren't rushing the quarterback at all. And you just added C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So what do you just like stockpile? You're going to run like a, 4-safety defense? Ollie, maybe.
Yes.
Like I'm literally, I'm looking at this and thinking they have more faith in their ability to scheme up pressure than they do to cover up everything that's been going wrong on the back end. But I also wonder what it means for the deployment of Kyle Hamilton. This is a really fascinating. We can get to the Chargers side of it, but a really fascinating move from the Ravens' perspective to me.
Yeah, I think OA is being somewhat effective as a pass rusher. He is brutal in the run game. So they just can't put him on the field anymore in the run game. He's in the wrong place the entire time. He freelances constantly. So you just couldn't have him on the field anymore. And I'm with you. I think that the deal is to just try and move Kyle Hamilton close to the line of scrimmage. The best blitzing tandem in the league, two guys working together, the most effective, most productive tandem was Nnamdi Madubuike and Kyle Hamilton last season. And then they had to move Hamilton back in the second half of the season because everything else was falling apart. It's like, let's put our best player in the weakest spot. We can't communicate. We can't line up. So they move Hamilton back. They once again can't communicate, can't line up, but they also now can't pressure the passer. So they need to move Hamilton further back down to fix the problem. And so you go and get a safety who can really play on the shelf and just play on the half field and trigger downhill from there, which is where Gilman's at his best. Comes from a system with the same verbiage. They've had brutal communication issues all season. They changed the communication system mid-season last year when they brought DMPs back by moving Hamilton back and kind of switched up the assignments. I'm guessing the thinking is we'll let Gilman handle the back end. We'll move Kyle back down when he's healthy and he can handle the front for us. So I think they're trying to do a kind of 2-for-1 deal of fixing the communication and getting their best player closer to the front where he can play in the nickel and impact the pressure game a bit more.
I feel bad for Starks, but he's just clearly in over his head at the moment. You see, and this is not, when they drafted him, they had Darius Washington and Kyle Hamilton on the field. It was a completely different vision for this defense. But yeah, this feels like a stop the bleeding move and pray that Mike Green turns into something. Kyle Van Noy's back. I don't know. I saw some folks saying, are the Ravens punting on the season? I don't think that's it at all. I think it's a combination of the specific issues they've had on defense and then not wanting to pay Odafe. On the flip side, so Khalil Mack's been out. That's obviously a big factor in this one. They don't feel like they're getting enough rush. They probably feel good enough about their run defense otherwise to compensate for what you talked about. And this is a vote of confidence in Elijah Molden on the back end, right, at safety, who's been a good player for them. But I was a little surprised. I maybe this says that Mac is more hurt than we know. That would be my one reservation for judging too much.
Yeah, that would be my guess. They just don't have enough speed off the ball up front. And if Owe gives you anything, and I don't think that he gives you all that much. Honestly, I think it's a lot of inflated fake production, but he does have speed off the ball. And when they want to be in that kind of sim pressure world where they're showing pressure and they bail out of it, the only way to get that stuff to sing, unless you have like a superstar like Garrett or Parsons or someone, is just, you need pure speed. You need to put fear in linemen that if this guy comes, I have to guess correctly that he's on his way. And Owe will at least give them speed. So it could be one where he's not the most impactful one-on-one rusher, but just because of the skill set, it helps some of the other guys when they're sending some pressure from deep, whether it's Derwin or it's the linebackers flying downhill, that because you have to account for his speed off the ball, it gives better angles for everyone else.
Real quickly, sorry, Rams fans, if you're listening to this and you're like, why aren't you talking about us at all? Your offense should be able to dominate this. I don't even you just slam duo down their throats and your guys are going to be wide open. I don't even know what is there to talk about. They can't stop them, this iteration of the Ravens. Yeah. If Lamar was playing in this one, we could at least make a case for a shootout. That's kind of going to be the thing with Lamar moving forward. Sounds like we'll see. I don't want to be too, but everything I'm reading suggests that he's not.
Yeah, I don't know. Force him back before the bye, with the schedule as it is after the bye.
It'd be interesting to see if, one thing that did strike me. The Texans did not have to sell out to stop the run because that defense is so good, and obviously we're just not concerned about Cooper Rush through the air. I'll be interested in seeing structurally how the Rams defense approaches that, right? Because they do kind of have to put in a little bit of work to stop the run against this group. So, it's certainly an easier opponent than, Houston, man, like what they're doing on defense every week is so crazy.
It's crazy. And they get to play defense a way no one else in the league can. They get
Yeah, just straight up.
Jalen Petrie down there as a linebacker. Everyone is searching. Could we please play that way? Robert Saleh's banging his head against the wall, being like, why can't I play that way? You don't have Jalen Petrie. He solves every answer.
It's they're really, really talented. All right. I assume we're both on the Rams here.
Heavily.
Okay. Titans, Raiders. Woof, woof. This is you. I already have done talked about Geno struggling. Are you on the Cam Ward train?
I am on the Cam Ward train, and I was not a believer pre-draft or in the preseason. But I'm now trying to gather as much stock as possible as people aren't shooting into the Titans.
Well, what do you have for a key in this game? Which team are you focused on?
I'm focusing on the Raiders. I know you said you've talked about Geno, but we may have to have a further intervention at this point because the struggles are so bizarre with him, where he's a completely different player. And I don't know if just the marriage with Chip is off, but he is skipping reads. These picks he's throwing are not overly aggressive, overly ambitious. Geno trying to fit into tight windows. Yeah. He is skipping reads. He is looking things off constantly. He goes from one, jumps to four, and then tries to get to a check down with two guys covering the check down. And it's just like, whatever, I'll try and throw it there. They're really lazy picks. And I've never, ever associated Geno with being like a lazy decision maker or deciding when to let go of the ball. So I don't know if it's just like, it's so brutal behind the scenes. The run game is so bad that he's just almost pseudo checked out on running this offense, but he just isn't playing anything like he's ever played before. This isn't like people who thought Geno wasn't very good are right. He was excellent in Seattle. He's playing a completely different style of quarterback here in Vegas.
Yeah, it's bizarre to watch, frankly. And obviously it's a terrible situation. The line, no Bowers. I mean, I think he might play in this one. He didn't play last week, but if people have asked me, is there any hope that the Raiders offense can turn it around? Yeah, because something broke in his brain. I don't know. I think what we saw week one is entirely possible that they can get back to that. I think the offensive line is way worse than I thought, but I'm also not going to lie and say I have high hopes of that because we're in week 6 now and it's been, multiple games now with just terrible decision-making on the part of the quarterback. That said, the Titans are not a good football team. Holes all around this defense. Offensively, they don't have skill players that scare you. So I think I'm going to take the Raiders here. I think the Raiders' run defense should be able to shut them down. And this Titans offense is so bad. There's so many things wrong with it right now. I don't even know where to begin, but I don't think...
First coach unit in all of football.
God, what in your mind, because I'm I don't even know where to start with, there's so many problems when I watch it. What do you think has been the biggest issue?
Just the functionality. They don't know where to line. They don't know who's supposed to be blocking who. They play against the Cardinals. They're tipping their snap count the entire game. They never change it. They're allowing an unblocked free runner into the face of Cam Ward. It's just so bizarre. Even their deep play action game. Traditionally, if you're running a deep play action, you would have 3 levels in the route structure. So there's a deep shot, an intermediate threat, and then a little check down to get out there. They'll just send 2 guys all the way downfield. It's like, hey, Cam, if you feel like hitting a 50-yard rope down the field, good luck. It's like, who put this together? What is this plan? It really does feel like a sequence of one-off plays, and the guys only learned about them 5 minutes before they started the game. It's a complete dysfunctional mess.
So Raiders?
I will take the Raiders. The only thing I will give Callahan, if he's got anything in the bag left, is the Raiders run the most predictable defense in football.
Yeah. It's been...
Field. They had 3 fossilized linebackers. One of them fell out with the staff and they kicked him off the team, essentially. They play zone coverage something like 90-something% of the time, whatever. It's 80% of the time. When they blitz, it's always a man blitz. It's back to Pete thinking it's 2012. So it's one game where if you do have anything about you as a staff and you can truly build an actual game plan in the NFL, this is the easiest one to do it. And I think Cam Ward is making the better throws week to week than Geno is at this point. So that would be the hope.
All right. I got a stinker on my side. Bengals, Packers. So the Bengals traded for Joe Flacco. I believe he's starting in this game. Seems like that's why they traded for him. That news broke right before our show, and they went to all of his reactions, and we all were just like, what's the point of this? Like, what are we doing here? Like, we all are just getting another day closer to death, you know? Like, this is, if you're a Bengals fan, at least, like, try something fun.
Dalton.
Sam Howell.
Dalton Howell.
Bring back Dalton. I'd rather watch Stetson Bennett try, you know, like just something unknown. I don't know. Someone who can move. If Flacco can move, this is terrible offensive line. And here comes an angry Packers defense that just got their teeth kicked in by Dallas. This is going to be ugly.
It's going to be ugly.
Ugly. Feeding frenzy.
The idea of they'll get Joe Flacco because if nothing else, and it's 3rd and long, he can throw the ball down the field to T and Jamar. I just don't think he was throwing the ball that well down the field this season. I think it's a little misnomer from when people saw him the previous years. He still has the power on the throws, but the accuracy is just completely gone. He is really afraid of getting hit, which is understandable. He's 40-something years old. I just don't get it at all. And I think it's just a damning indictment of the organization that they built a The Bengals, yeah, that they built a structure and offense that was only one guy can pilot this in the NFL. And we have no ability to adapt on the fly if that guy goes down. Given his injury record, it's just unfathomable that you would build a team that way, let alone pay 2 wide receivers the way that we've never seen a championship contender pay a team like that. It's the biggest like dereliction of duty a front office has given to its team.
Especially as you look around the league and you see coaches adapting their offenses to suit the skills of different new backup quarterback. And, you know, I thought Stefanski, until the last drive, which was frustrating, I thought he actually called a good game for Gabriel for most of that game. As, you know, and the offense is obviously evolving there. And, yeah, just Cincinnati basically throw their hands up and say, we built this whole thing in the image of our quarterback. He asked for it. Don't yell at us. And it's like, well, but you were the bosses. You can't. It's like parents being like, well, our kid wanted all of this. Sorry. And like, you're the adults.
Even if you said, well, we don't have the time to practice all the stuff that we would run if Joe wasn't available. One, that doesn't really wash when he's been out multiple weeks. 2, we watch Matt LaFleur and Malik Willis on
done this same team, right? Yeah, yes,
they run the wishbone offense for 2 weeks and won games
and win.
Yes,
yeah. I would pick the Packers even if Malik Willis was playing this game. By the way, they'd be able to run the ball on Cincinnati. I'd like to see the Packers run game get right here too. This is Green Bay is going to come out angry, and I imagine we're both picking them to win. Niners Bucks. All right, a good game. We got all good games from here on out. We're doing both sides of every game. You're on the Niners side. I'm on the Bucks side. This is in Tampa. You go first.
The Niners key for me is how do they isolate and attack Savate Dennis? And that probably is going to be the Christian McCaffrey game when he gets like 15 targets and just has a monster game.
Yeah, I actually wrote this down for Tampa. Can you stop passes to running backs? Okay, because they've struggled with it all year at the linebacker, and they're actually 28th in DVOA passes to running backs in particular. And that it's been such a reminder, like as all the Niners injuries have happened. And I know Kendrick Bourne just had like an insane game, and you know there's been different players, but watching them, I was like, oh right, Christian McCaffrey was the guy they couldn't afford to lose. Like, as long as he's there, Kyle Shanahan has the weapon he needs to manipulate defenses, the gravity, all of it. if you take him out, that's when things get froggy for them. Obviously not having Kittle has been brutal, and Ayuk the whole season. But it has been a reminder watching Mac Jones in particular in this offense that CMC is the straw that stirs the drink. And unfortunately for Tampa, I think it is where they're the weakest, is dealing with a player like him.
Yeah, I mean, the Bucs have, I think, the best secondary in the NFL by like a decent distance. I know the Eagles fans might be upset about that, but Tyke Smith is playing as well as any safety in football. So is Antoine Winfield Jr. It's probably those two at the top of the running order right now. Jacob Parrish has been sensational as a rookie. And the pass rush is really, really effective with the 4-man group. And then you get tagged on all the balls, blitzes, and the creativity. Then Levante at least gives you the real downhill thumping threat and the impact in the run game. Dennis is just kind of like the guy out there. It's like the ultimate test case of the weak link theory on defense. Like they have 11 really, really talented players or 10 really talented players, and then they have Savache Dennis. And can you find him? It just so happens that we have the ultimate mismatch finder coming up this week with the ultimate mismatch, which is Christian McCaffrey on Dennis.
Bucs are still banged up in the secondary. I think I just saw that Zion McCollum might be hurt as well. So definitely feels like a pass-happy game for San Francisco. I think Purdy's going to be back for this regardless. I mean... Nah, I don't have that conversation. All right.
You can have a conversation about whether you just keep starting Mac?
Well, I in this game, the quick game guy is kind of who you want. You're just saying. I'm not saying that he's a better quarterback than Brock Purdy, but stylistically, he brings something different to the table, and that works for specific matchups. It was I was like, he's the right quarterback for this Rams team. Watching them, right? All you just need a guy who's just like pew 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 pew. Baker's very much not a pew pew quarterback right now. He is coming off of one of his best, probably his best game ever. He's up there, granted, against the aforementioned Seahawks secondary, but he's been very, very good. He's been very, very accurate. He's been very, very aggressive. So what I wrote is, Baker, just don't turn it over, man, because I kind of think that, I think if he doesn't turn it over, this offense is going to have a lot of success against the San Francisco pass rush that's been super defanged without Nick Bosa and has vulnerabilities. Baker has the third highest tight window throw rate in football. There's a litany of reasons for that. I think Dak might be ahead of him, probably. But he also, and I don't use this stat a lot. It's the PFF stat, but I do think it's accurate. He has the second most turnover-worthy plays behind Geno Smith. The difference is Geno has 8 interceptions and Baker has 1. It actually, that is what it looks like to me. He is trying to fit the ball into the tightest, and he, again, has been nails. And when you have receivers playing the way Bucca is playing, it's fine. And also that's a big part of the tight window thing. Same thing I would say about Dak. But, that could run into some bad luck. So I think that this to me is just don't turn it over game.
Yeah, I mean, he's being pretty fortunate this season that he has this now streak of the game-winning drives and the comebacks, and it puts him in an MVP conversation, but they probably shouldn't have been in those situations if he didn't keep trying to fit the ball into tight windows, and he's been so fortunate with not turning it over. You would hope this week he would just understand, this is an efficiency game. We can drive on these guys. I don't need to go and get it in 2 plays. We can get it in 10, 12. There's not enough on the Niners back end to really challenge us for a 12-play sequence, and that's all the Niners are right now. They got all these scrappy, undersized guys because the stars are out, and they're really fighting. They just don't have a ton of talent. And so unless you cough the ball up to them 3 times, they're just not going to be able to stay in the game.
Let me actually, get the latest Purdy Mac Jones update. I assumed it was Purdy back. Have you heard anything on...
I've not heard. I thought that Mac played so well they would push it another week if they could.
Yeah, there's no reason to. All right, well, assuming it is Mac Jones, I do think this Niners offense can move the ball in Tampa the way that we've been discussing. You don't have to push the ball downfield. You don't have to run it super efficiently, and you shouldn't. I was encouraging my key for the Seahawks, against Tampa was for Clint Kubiak to go way less run heavy on first down. And I was actually really encouraged to see him completely flip their numbers and just come out firing against it. And I think you're going to want to see that. We've seen Kyle Shanahan. He's very cognizant of when they shouldn't be running the ball on early downs. And I think that he's going to hand the keys over to Mac on early downs, and it's going to be effective.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Kyle is the best at whatever the game plan requires is what we'll do. And there's the stable an offense every week, but the feel and flow of the offense, whether it's, throw to get ahead and then run the ball to close out the game or vice versa, he's the best we have in the league at managing that.
I'm going to pick Tampa. How about you?
Yeah, I'll take Tampa. I'm kind of in agreement with you that if Brock is in there, it doesn't quite fit what they would need as much in this game, though he's just the better player. And if he's available, then you're going to want him out there. And I just think the biggest mismatch is the Bucs offense going up against the Niners defense.
Yeah, the Niners defense. The Rams just turned it over. Their offense was moving the ball on them. Just the pass rush is not getting it done right now. And the Tampa offensive line is coming off of, I thought, a really good game. Okay. Let's get to the big bad. Both Monday night games are actually good, but Sunday Night Football is one of the best games of the season. Lions-Chiefs in Kansas City, coming off of a Chiefs loss, devastating loss to Jacksonville. The Lions now are being talked about as the best team in the NFL. You have Detroit. I'm going to go first. I'm on Kansas City. I just wrote, can you attack these corners? So I just finally got to Lions Bengals. Why? And it was really a great game for Terry and Arnold, even though he got hurt, because anytime Lions fans are mean to him now, he should just put on that game and show them what happened when he went out. And the good news for the Lions long term is he is actually not out for the season, which is remarkable and really important because of the lack of depth they have. They lost Ray Straw before the season. DJ Reed is on the IR. So in Cincinnati, it was Amik Robertson and Rocky Sin, and then they had Trey Flowers, who I did not know was in Detroit, out there. Coming off of a game where the Chiefs passed. To be more specific, other than attack the corners, I wrote, can you make these Lions DBs communicate? I'm thinking if I'm Andy Reid, I'm just very aggressively 4x1, tacking them with crossers, just doing all the Andy Reid stuff, because this is a group that has not played football together. And right now, this is a quarterback who is absolutely dealing Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and in the preseason, Reid kind of flipped what he was doing with Travis Kelce. It's the smallest sample size ever, but they don't really use Kelce an awful lot anymore. It's like an isolated receiver on one side of the formation, then throw all the receivers on the other side, because he just becomes the slot for them in any kind of isolation situation. And it was Rashee Rice who'd be the isolated guy to try and kind of funk up that communication. I think that's what I'd be tracking early on. How often do they just say Kelce's an isolated standalone receiver on one side of the formation, putting all the speedsters to the other side? And if you get some kind of double cross, double posting, that's when you're just playing, a straight line speed race with these guys. And whatever you think of Tyquan Thornton and his breakout as a receiver, in a straight speed race to gamify the matchups for you, I think that's their best plan of attack.
He's been pretty good. That's the other thing about Thornton. It's not just he's obviously fast, and he's always been fast, but so he had 3 deep catches last week, right? One was coverage bust. I think it was cover 3. It was a deep over. The second one, Mahomes just got hit and just flung it, and he showed something which I think you've seen now, which is the ability to track the football. Is really quite impressive. And then I think the third one was in Mahomes extended, and that's another thing he has shown, the ability to make himself available on these scramble drills, which is obviously the Tyreek Hill special is very important in this offense. But yeah, I've been watching him thinking damn, this is kind of legit.
His general toughness, that was the knock on him coming New England's this guy wants to sprint. He doesn't want to be a football player. He can't play through contact. And those guys are clearly either just lying or wrong. It's it can only be that simple. He plays through contact. He'll stick his nose in there. Yeah. He tries to block, even though it's not that great, but he's doing his best out there. He's playing, I think, really good all around ball. And then you mentioned some of the deep tracking stuff. It's not just long speed. It's the ability to go find it and pull it in. It's a legit weapon.
I feel for Kelvin Shepherd because I think he's actually done a great job this year. And I just don't know what is your approach when you start losing these corners and because Kansas City, you want to play a decent amount of man coverage as long as you can account for Mahomes as a scrambler, but I do not trust these cornerbacks to hold up in man coverage.
Yeah, that's the tricky thing is the Mahomes scrambling part. You start running out of bodies to be able to play all that man and then not account for him, and he'll lead the team in rushing again. I look back to what he did against the Ravens and all kind of the full rush stuff that he did. And this is how teams have tried
linebackers.
Where you just kind of have a layered rush plan where it's like the first wave goes and it's two guys. Then here comes the third guy. Then here comes the fourth guy. And as Mahomes moves around, you push him and funnel him with how you build the kind of rush increments out to say, we know you're going to be stood on this hash in 3 seconds. And we know you want to hold the ball and look downfield. And we'll get a free runner coming through at you, whether it's Anzalone or Campbell. I think that's your best bet. And you just hope that can we force 2 takeaways rather than trying to be a team that just stops them driving down the field for the entire game.
Yeah, I think the problem with that approach is the Chiefs are much more capable of attacking the spies in the way that the Ravens weren't through their passing attack. I don't love this for them. But good news, Lions fans. There's 2 sides to this game. I suspect you're going to talk about the offense because that's why this is going to be good.
Yeah, this is why it's going to be good. Is that I just think that I think the Lions can rain down 6, 7, 8, 20-yard plus plays in the passing game. I think they can down the field. And I just don't know what even the solve is for this offense anymore. Even the guys we thought would be concerns coming in, the interior guys, they're kind of limited in what they do well, but what they do well is exactly who the Lions want to be, which is just, 2 bodies, 2 heads together, duo, double and climb, knock you off the ball, and then hit big chunk vertical play action shots. And then if they want to kind of move around Gibbs or Laporta or Sam Brown and be creative in the matchup game, they can do that too. And there's just so many different answers, so many different weapons, and the Chiefs just can't play one-on-one football, and they can't really create a ton of pressure, particularly they're down 4. And Chris Jones has just not quite got in the pass rush the same juice off the ball. He's been pretty good at disrupting the run game, but it's just not the same kind of impact on obvious passing down. So I just don't see any way that the Lions don't comfortably drive down the field, and this becomes a real shootout, and we just see who makes a kind of game-breaking mistake.
Which defense in the NFL do you think is the worst against play action e-paper play?
Oh, the way you say that, I'm going to guess the Chiefs.
Yeah. I mean, week 1, lives rent-free in my head, just watching guys wide-ass open downfield with the Chargers. But, yeah, this has been, I think, the style of backers that they have. This has been something you can get them with. Obviously, the Lions are the best play-action passing attack in football. I think this could get ugly. The Jones thing is, interesting because we talked about Hainsey going out, and I think it was on the throw to BTJ. Yeah, it was the ball to BTJ on the final game-winning drive. The Chiefs had a 5-man pressure, and they ran a little game on the right side, and they had Jones on the backup center, and I saw that when they lined up, and I'm thinking, here we go. And then the center kind of held his own, and that was if I'm a Chiefs fan, that might be the scariest thing from the entire game for me. I don't think he's washed. I'm not saying that, but it's kind of like what I was saying about Philadelphia, where it's the whole idea is you have this dominant defensive lineman, and if he's not, I mean, Karlaftis has been good this year, but I do not. It's what I said week 1. I do not feel like this Chiefs pass rush is good enough right now.
No, it's not. They have the pressure to have any hope, and I just don't think they can hold up on the back end as well, particularly when they have to kick Chamari Connor down into the slot. It's just easy money for everyone else. And the thing with Jones, it's not just that he's not punishing the backup like you mentioned there. He no longer has the ability to just play all down the line of scrimmage. He used to be able to.
What's up with this is some okay. I'm so glad you brought this up because that's another thing. I keep waiting on these game-winning important drives. I'm oh, they're gonna put. And in this one, it's they probably like the matchup on the inside, right? But that was last year. Chris Jones was on the edge on every meaningful third down, pretty much. I'm gonna look up his deployment because you're so correct that they've not used him this way this year. And outside of Karlaftis, nobody in Kansas City is getting consistent pressure. Amenahu's given them very little.
And it used to be with him
yeah.
where they would just say, we're going to put our best on your worst. And then all the fun stuff that Spags wants to do is going to happen on the other side, away from him. And you just need to have extra attention on him. So all the fun stuff springs and works. Now, even when they move him around, he's part of the pressure game, which is a real tell from then that they just don't think dominant one-on-one and that everything has to be some kind of pressure or creativity or exchange up front to spring him free, rather than it being we can kind of have a hybrid best of both worlds where we have a dominant one-on-one player and all the fun happening on the other side of the formation.
22 at the Leo this year. Let's see what it was. Last year felt like way more. I'm just looking up Chris Jones's alignments. I always like pulling up his headshot because he's got that. You know his headshot. He's got like that big goofy smile. It always makes me laugh. All right, I'm going to take Detroit here, but I do think both offenses are going to be able to move the ball well. I just think Detroit, to my eye, has more impactful players on defense, so I could see make like Aiden Hutchinson's obviously playing out of his mind as usual. So, and I think the Detroit offense is also just really built to punish this Chiefs defense.
Yeah, I think there's just fewer questions with the Lions on both sides of the ball, even with the corner issues. I'm concerned about how you build the rush plan against Mahomes. Everyone's tried everything. Nothing ever seems to work unless you're just kind of wrecking the pocket off the snap with four guys up there. And I don't think the Lions quite have the ability to do that because it is just Hutchinson and then trying to piece it together with everyone else for the most part. But we've only really seen 2 weeks, 1 week and a half of the Chiefs kind of clicking on offense where it feels sustainable. So I'll trust in the Lions offense more and I'll take them.
I will say, I think when Rice is back, it's like this Chiefs offense is just going to, I think, go nuclear. I really do think they're going to be a top 5 offense in the second half of the year. They're already like not that far off for all the Sturm and Drunk. Sorry, I was buying time a little because I actually wanted to see the line in that game because I don't know. It's in Kansas City. Chiefs, Lions line. Let's see. Chiefs are favorites in Kansas City. So, yeah. Not by 1.5, so that's not really. Okay. Anyway, sorry. 2 more games, 2 Monday night games, both good games. Let's start with Bills-Falcons. I have been really excited to talk to you about this because you've written a lot about the Falcons' offense, and I think it's really an important conversation. It's an important conversation. I'm glad we're having it for this particular game against this particular defense because we talked earlier at the top about like some of the stuff that the Patriots did, right, and that they've been doing on offense and how they've been evolving. But one of the things that really jumped out to me watching them against the Bills is how much the Bills struggled with misdirection, run-pass conflict. They were getting them flowing one way and then sending guys in another. They were killing them with play action, working over the middle of the field. The Bills right now, I think they're a little bit slow at some important positions on the back end, and you can really kill them with misdirection. So Atlanta doesn't really use misdirection. They don't do any of that stuff. They're a fascinating offense in that they have gone in like kind of a different direction from the rest of the league. You wrote a piece for your Substack. We talked about the read optional, which people should subscribe to, where you talked about how they are just like, they're not just like living in the pistol. They own every piece of pistol property and they're landlords, and they're just, they have made that completely their identity. They do not put Michael Penix under center. They do not run play action. They're still good at running the football because they have, there's linear reasons for that, but they have maybe the best running back in the NFL. And they are really good at using him in the pass game, which I think is going to matter in this one. But anyways, this is a very long-winded monologue for me to say, can the Falcons offense, because I'm on the Falcons side of this, take advantage of where the Bills are weak? And I think that's a really interesting and kind of complicated question.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. The thing with the Falcons offense, you mentioned I wrote that piece, it's kind of a really strange piece to write, because it was almost like the diatribe of man losing his mind, that the thing I wanted to see in the league, which I really felt at this kind of moment we're in, was
the pistol.
Pistol-based.
Save it for Washington because they're doing good stuff with the pistol. That's really working.
Dak Robinson runs at the highest rate in the league, and I'm all fired up. Like, okay, someone recognizes this is a good approach to take with where the league's at right now. But everything they do from the pistol is so non-pistol centric. They're actually not taking any of the benefits of being in that set formation where it's a downhill running game from the gun, and where you can allow the quarterback to keep his vision on the defense as they try to run play action. They just don't do that. It's a stretch-based horizontal offense from the pistol, and their play action game is a full turn the back play action system that is it's effectively an under center offense just push back. And it makes very little sense to me. Can it work against the Bills run defense? I think so, because even without the misdirection, those guys, just the run entry, the speed you mentioned, it's the easiest team to cut it back against the grain in the league. And if anyone's a better, there's just not a better one kick and go player in the league than Bijan Robinson. So I don't think for this game it's going to expose some of the structural flaws in the offense. I think they'll be able to run it pretty effectively.
Yeah, it's the pistol stuff. You make a really good point, and I know I'm sorry. I'll stop saying Washington, but let's revisit this when we get to Washington, because I think Washington is doing all the stuff that you talk about. They are reaping the benefits of running out those looks, and Atlanta is not, because you're right. This is not an offense that they're not getting downhill. They're not play actioning off of it in a way that's fooling anyone. It's just how they align, and it feels like just purely because they don't believe the quarterback is comfortable under center. I cannot think of another explanation for why they don't put him under center.
I thought that, but that was also the explanation they gave with Kirk Cousins when he was running the offense. Was, with the Achilles, he can't sprint out and stretch and do that, so we just moved it backwards. But then when Penix came in, the rate went up. So Penix has been there long enough now that if they truly wanted to be under center, it's a big boy league. He's a paid professional. It's that's what we're doing.
Him do it. Excuse me. I mean, we didn't do it a lot, but I've seen with these two eyes, he's capable of it. He's not a statue. I just don't. I don't understand.
It's an ideological thing with Zach Robinson, and I don't think he's wrong for where the game's at. It's just that as he's gone through piecing the offense together, all the players are better in the stuff that is really horizontal based and stretching teams out. That's where Bijan's at his best. It's where Algier's at his best. It's where the line's at its best. And then he's just got this weird amalgamation of, well, I'll just do it, as you mentioned, from this formation, which doesn't really give any benefit. It's easier to mask and disguise the play action stuff when you're under center. Just hide the ball easier, and the rhythm and steps of the thing are easier to coach and maintain than doing it from the pistol. So it's a really, really bizarre offense. I think that's why it doesn't feel like it's got the same rhythm as when you watch the Cowboys, when you watch the Rams. There's a real sequencing to everything. They want to do things look the same, they smell the same, and that's when they can hit you with the play action. With the Falcons, it really is individual play.
Very siloed. Yeah, the run game and pass game have basically nothing to do with each other. They might as well be in different planets. But it's I'm saying all this, and I still think that they can attack Buffalo. I still think that they can run on them. I still think Bijan's going to be really a big factor as a pass catcher. I still think that if the way they've been using Drake London more in the slot, in breakers, all that stuff's going to could work on the Bills. It's just frustrating when you watch them, and there's this feeling this could be so much better. Even the skill players are so good, and they're not being optimized. Bijan, sorry, he goes back to Bijan. In particular, I keep saying this, but if you just let him live in Detroit for a day, he might run for 500 yards in that offense. It's just, you know what I mean? He'd be so good in that style of offense. So it is frustrating. You're on Buffalo's side. What do you have for this?
Well, I think that the run defense is the number one key to them winning the game. Honestly, it's that simple. And outside, I don't know, trading for Jeffrey Simmons, doing something to help with the front. I'm not sure what the fix is going to be here for them in season. The safeties get a lot of the attention because it's a pretty brutal group, but the linebackers are really struggling to just. It doesn't feel like anyone understands where they're supposed to be on the field against every specific run look. And if there is any sense of misdirection or some kind of color flash to change the eyes, everyone just bites and everything. And maybe that's what they've been told to do. It's just, we're going to attack and we fly to the ball. It's not working. And I don't really see what the in-season pivot would be beyond trying to add some more talent.
Ed Oliver might be back this week. That is helpful. But Milano got hurt again in the game against New England. Yeah, I really can't, because I don't think the Patriots have a very good run game right now, but I can't get out of my head how much they were able to completely get the Bills defense flowing in the wrong direction on multiple plays.
Yeah, and I think they just decided going into the season, Sean McDermott wants to be a dime-based coach, and they wanted to change the four-man front and say, we got to get more versatile. You look at the guys they drafted, it's all inside-outside guys for passing downs, and that has worked. The four-man rush is really good, and that's how they want to play in the playoffs, right? Which is Josh gives us a lead, these guys close the deal. That's what they've been chasing for years now, and they've never had the four-man rush. They actually have the four-man rush group now, but these games are closer than they should be because they can't get off the field on third downs when it's third and short in a way that they hoped.
I don't think the Atlanta Falcons defense can stop Josh Allen. I don't think they can stop the Bills' run game, which is kind of where you have to start in every Bills offense. Every Bills game, you start with, can this defense stop them on the ground? It's a very tall order. New England has actually a very good run defense that's gotten better and better as the season has gone on. The Falcons are 30th in success rate versus the run. Bills are 24th, by the way, in case you're wondering. And then the Bills can just do everything off of that. So it's just, honestly.
Yeah, and I think that Khalil Shakir up against Billy Bowman might be the biggest miss this week. I like Bowman. He really fights and scraps, and he can make some big plays, but he's just pretty stiff on the turn. And people have really started to get after him and attack him in space, and just putting Shakir on him one-on-one, I think that's probably the most automatic down thing the Bills will have.
So we're both on Buffalo, presumably. Oh, you're on the Bills as well. I see.
On the Bills, yeah.
Okay. Have we only? I guess the Browns is the only game where I decided to. No, I took the Raiders. No, you took the Raiders too, right, over the Titans.
Yeah, I took the Raiders.
All right. So yeah, this is not a great. This is not a lot of upsets this week. The Browns and the Steelers. That's my spicy pick. I'll stick with that one. Okay. Bears Commanders. This is a fun one. I'll go first because I was like, I'm going to talk about it in like 5 seconds. I love watching this Commanders run game so much. Cliff Kingsbury, he already has wildly surpassed my expectations generally as offensive play caller, but he is, and this is an often repeated refrain, has always been an amazing run game designer. Even in Arizona when things went off the cliff, he was still really creative. And what I love watching the Commanders, and this really does flow well off of the Falcons talk, they're constantly iterating in terms of what they do in the run game. Watching them against LA from the end zone view was just it was a symphony of manipulation. The new thing that they've added is the pistol stuff with the 6 offensive linemen. But to your point, they are pulling dudes. It's all gap off of that. It's duo, counter, pimp. They're so good at pin pull. And it was incredibly effective against LA. And then they're also really good when they put Daniels in the gun at making defenses account for him. But again, there's so much misdirection, various motions, pulling guys one way, Cooler's going the other way, Daniels is going. They just give you so much to look at on the ground. And it's a mind, like it's really, really tricky. And while this Bears run defense isn't as apocalyptic as they looked, I think, the first couple weeks of the season, I do not like this matchup for them on the ground.
No, I think this is a brutal matchup for them on the ground. What Cliff does so well, I talk about this all the time, but what all these offensive guys are trying to do in the last couple of seasons is just try to make the defense be static. Everyone is moving so much. Like you have all these mud looks and these safeties rotating, and then Zach Bourne starting off the ball, he's walking on the ball. They are walking and moving all the time on defense, and it's just a cluster to figure out what's happening. And the best way to stop them all is just make them be static. And the best way to do that is to either get in heavy personnel or to spread it all out and go empty. And they are the biggest proponents of doing both and trying to find a way to marry those together. And just that you're in constant run pass conflict because of Daniels, because of some of the formational stuff. And the thing I really love that he does is on every single opening drive, there is some kind of newfangled blocking scheme, which is typically getting to what is a traditional 2 pulling concept.
Yeah. But
really
like with
1 puller.
Wildly different. Yeah, right.
Yeah, wildly different. They'll put some skill player in motion or an extra tight end in motion to become the traditional second puller. So it's really a small lift. It's like, it's pretty hard to get 2 guys pulling, right? It's like, there's a lot of opportunity for someone to penetrate and get through. So they'll always open the game with some new show of this is how we're getting to it this week. And then they always come back to open the third quarter with a shot off that action every single time. It's his pet joy of like, this is what I'm going with this week. And it just makes everyone doubt themselves. You hit it perfectly. Like the pause they put in people, they make you play static, then they make you pause at the snap. And that's just the most effective offense.
Dude, the Chargers defense is so well coached, and I've never seen them out leveraged the way they were in this game. Just completely had no idea what was going on in the run game half the time. Yeah, it's really impressive. I mean, like I was like going back and just watching all this. It's always a different guy getting a great block off. It's always different guys pulling. Daniels didn't even have to run that much, which was nice to see. Keep that up. But just the mere threat of him as a designed runner and a lot of the stuff too, they do so much stuff with him. It's really fun to watch. But you have the Bears. What do you have in this?
Got to find a way to force the Commanders into man coverage. I think that is the key. Can you do that through?
Yeah, good one.
I think it's a tricky one for Ben Johnson because Ben wants to be who Ben is. The ego is the size of the state, basically, and an earned ego at that. But so he wants to do all the movement and all the different stuff we're just talking about with Cliff. When you move a whole bunch, people just default. They check the zone. That's why the zone rates go to 70, 80%. But if you can get the Commanders into man coverage, they have two sinkholes in coverage, which is Bobby, who I adore and is an unbelievable blitzer. And I could talk to you for hours about how he's redefined his game as he's aged. But you've got Bobby in space, which is a disaster, and Marshall Lattimore, which is a disaster. Yeah. Two complete sinkholes in man coverage. If you can just swallow the ego for a week and accept it might be static, it might look a bit rickety at times, but we're just going to get in the gun and try and play man-to-man football. We know we can expose these guys.
This is so it's so I'm in complete agreement with you, and it is really funny how much like styles make fights and matchups matter in the NFL, because we were literally just having this conversation about how much like the Commanders can do what the Falcons can. The Falcons can't do what the Patriots did against the Bills defense, right? But the Falcons did what you just described against the Commanders, right? Like they just, I was trying to pull up the coverage because they were killing them, and specifically hunting the players that you described in that game. And that is a very, we're just going to sit in the gun and attack. And yeah, I think like that is the correct approach against this team. I think McLaurin is going to be back in this game, it's looking like. We'll see how he looks, but potentially that would be a matchup that they're going after, I think. Sorry, McLaurin. Oh, it's very bounce from team to team. Sorry. Excuse me. That's on the other side of the football. I think that DJ Moore would be a person you could Lattimore with, not McLaurin, his own teammate. Sorry. Brain fart. Yeah, so I have a lot of confidence. I think that the Bears are capable. They're very inconsistent, though, offensively. And they're coming off the bye, so that's kind of interesting in this one. Like, you talked about what they... Like, do you think that they can go toe-to-toe with... I don't. Frankly, I'm going to take Washington in this one. I just think the Washington offense is so much more consistent at this point, and the floor is so much higher.
The problem the Commanders have is when they play zone, that they basically recognize we can't stay in man coverage. When they go to zone, they've had more busts than anyone in the league this season in zone coverage. They get up more explosive plays in zone coverage than anyone in the league this season. And almost all of that is a communication breakdown and someone messing up. It's not just like, they ran a great concept, they have good players. It's just like they mess up. I don't think they're going to mess up like that. It's pretty rare for a team to just mess up for like 6, 7, 8 weeks in just a base zone system. So I think you've got to try and find a way to force them into man. My fear would be coming off a bye. Ben Johnson, they've been working on the operation, which, as you said, has been a mess. They're always behind the chains. They can't get the plays off. Guys can't get lined up. That they're going to want to, having invested so much time in trying to get the operational stuff right, just run their offense. I think if they just accepted that, if we almost play like the Bengals for a week, as you mentioned, how the Falcons, the Commanders, that's the best game plan for this opponent. It's not about us and like the next 5 years of Caleb's development. Let's go get a win. I just don't really trust Ben Johnson to do that. But if they did do that, I think they could score pretty effectively drive for drive with a really good Commanders offense.
You're still taking Washington, I presume.
I've gone all chalk at this point. Why not? I'll take the Bears coming off the bye. Why not?
All right, good. I appreciate you. Yeah, I'm going to take the Commanders. I just love the Commanders offense. I think there are defenses that I trust to exploit the issues of the Commanders' defense, and I'm just not there yet with Chicago, even though I do think the quarterback has played well, and there's a lot of promising stuff from the early part of the season. But the Commanders' run game just gives them such a, like I said, a floor that I think I'm going to lean on that in a lot of these games. I love watching it. I can't. I know I sound a little bit over the top, but like they really are. It is a really, really well designed. It might be my favorite run game to watch in football right now. Is that crazy? I mean, who do you have more? Because the Bills just dominate you. They do use motion. I mean, but a lot of that is just like our offensive line is just going to kick your ass. I mean, but the creativity in Washington right now feels like kind of unmatched.
Yeah, there's no one who basically has said, what are the 25 best plays at every level of football, high school, Lithuania, Poland. We'll just put them in all our offense at the pro level. That's what Cliff does, and that's the most fun. I think the Cowboys is right there. I love the variety in that. And then the Colts.
Yeah, Cowboys is really good.
Tyler Warren's like an extra lineman, but also a dominant one receiver. That's the most isolated fun thing to watch, I think. But the Commanders is right there.
All right, well, those are every game we picked this week. As we mentioned earlier, you can go check out Ollie's podcast, check out the Read Optional on Substack as well. You can also listen to him on NFL Daily with our friend Greg Rosenthal. If you are watching the show Love is Blind, me and David are going to recap episodes 7 through 9. That hits Friday, the latest episode of Viewer Discretion, which you can download wherever you get podcasts or watch on YouTube. Ollie, did you watch Love is Blind UK by any chance?
I did not. I'm a huge Married at First Sight guy, particularly Married at First Sight Australia. Australian reality shows are the apex of reality shows. Traitors Australia is crack cocaine, but I have
Traitors Australia.
Australia is like they put a psychic in the group, so she can just guess the traitors, and then you got to decide: do you believe the psychic on sensational television?
Well, anyways, if you're into Love is Blind, check that out. I will be back on Tuesday with Foxworth to talk about both of those very exciting Monday night games. Cannot wait for that. Thank you so much for joining Ollie. Thank you, as always, to our friends at Omaha Productions who make this show: Kirsten Sebecki, Tucker Tashton, Jack Foster, Owen Saylor. See you guys next week. Oh, special thanks, by the way, to my friends at Meadowlark and Pablo for letting me use his studio in New York. Really appreciate you guys for doing that, too. I wanted to mention that, too.